Greetings, readers! It's January 2025, so this is the first episode of the new season of Book Buzz, the show where I, Sarah Reed, the Reader's Advisory Librarian at Oshkosh Public Library, tell you about a few new releases out this month and give you some recommendations to read in the meantime. And this year there's a special bonus segment at the end, so stay tuned. We'll dive right in, though, because we've got a lot of great new books coming out, and I'm sure you've all got new TBR lists and reading goals to start with. So we'll start off with a mystery coming out on January 28th from Walter Mosley called Been Wrong So Long It Feels Like Right. Jo King Oliver's beloved Grandma B has found a tumor, and at her age, treatment is high risk. She's lived life fully and without regrets, and now she has only a single dying wish: to see her long-lost son. King has been estranged from his father, Chief Odin Oliver, since he was a young boy. He swore to never speak to the man again when he was taken away in handcuffs. But now Grandma B's pure ask has opened King's heart, and through his hunt he gains a deeper understanding of his father as a complicated, righteous man, a man defined by women, a man protected by women, a man he wants to know. Although Chief was released from prison years ago, he's been living underground ever since. Now King must not only find his father, but prove his innocence and protect the future of his entire family. Simultaneously, King finds himself in a moral bind. Marigold Hart, the wife of a powerful Californian billionaire, has gone missing, along with their 7-year-old daughter. Orr is brutish and dangerous, and King realizes after locating her that it's in her best interest to stay hidden. But are his motives pure? There is something magnetic about Marigold. He can't help but want her near. In the latest installment of the Jo King Oliver series, no good deed goes unpunished. Emotionally stirring, pulse-pounding, and undeniably sexy, Been Wrong So Long It Feels Like Right shows Walter Mosley at his best. And for a similar mystery thriller with missing persons and unreliable characters, try Looking Glass Sound by Catriona Ward. Next up on the 7th, we have a horror novel released from Clay McLeod Chapman called Wake Up and Open Your Eyes. From master of horror Clay McLeod Chapman, a relentless social horror novel about a family on the run from a demonic possession epidemic that spreads through media. Noah has been losing his polite Southern parents to far-right cable news for years, so when his mother leaves him a voicemail warning him that the Great Reawakening is here, he assumes it's related to one of her many conspiracy theories. But when his phone calls go unanswered, Noah makes the drive from Brooklyn to Richmond, Virginia. There he discovers his childhood home in shambles and his parents locked in a terrifying trance-like state in front of the TV. Panicked, Noah attempts to snap them out of it. Then Noah's mother brutally attacks him. But Noah isn't the only person to be attacked by a loved one. Families across the country are tearing each other apart literally as people succumb to a form of possession that gets worse the more time they spend glued to a screen. In Noah's Richmond-based family, only he and his young nephew Marcus are unaffected. Together they must race back to the safe haven of Brooklyn, but can they make it before they fall prey to the violent hordes? This ambitious, searing novel from one of horror's modern masters holds a mirror to our divided nation and will shake readers to the core. For a read-alike, try Survivor Song by Paul Tremblay, which is also a zombie-esque epidemic story, and very good. Next up, a thriller from an Oshkosh patron favorite, Frida McFadden, out on the 28th, called The Crash. The nightmare she's running from is nothing compared to where she's headed. Tegan is 8 months pregnant, alone, and desperately wants to put her crumbling life in the rearview mirror, so she hits the road, planning to stay with her brother until she can figure out her next move. But she doesn't realize she's heading straight into a blizzard. She never arrives at her destination. Stranded in rural Maine, with a dead car and a broken ankle, Tegan worries she's made a terrible mistake. Then a miracle occurs. She's rescued by a couple who offer her a room in their warm cabin until the snow clears. But something isn't right. Tegan believes she was waiting out the storm, but as time ticks by, she comes to realize she's in grave danger. The safe haven isn't what she thought it was, and staying here may have been her most deadly mistake yet. And now she must do whatever it takes to save herself and her unborn child. A gut-wrenching story of motherhood, survival, and twisted expectations, #1 New York Times best-selling author Frida McFadden delivers a snowbound thriller that will chill you to the bone. And for a read-alike, to read in the meantime, try Famous Last Words by Gillian McAllister. Next up, fantasy fans will not need a reminder that Onyx Storm, the new book by Rebecca Yarros, comes out on January 21st. It is book 3 in the Empyrean series, which is a very popular series. After nearly 18 months in Basgiath War College, Violet Sorrengail knows there's no time for lessons, no more time for uncertainty, because the battle has truly begun, and with enemies closing in from outside their walls and within their ranks, it's impossible to know who to trust. Now Violet must journey beyond the failing Aretian wards to seek allies from unfamiliar lands to stand with Navarre. The trip will test every bit of her wit, luck, and strength, but she will do anything to save what she loves, her dragons, her family, her home, and him. Even if it means keeping a secret so big it could destroy everything. They need an army, they need power, they need magic, and they need the only thing Violet can find, the truth. But a storm is coming, and not everyone can survive its wrath. For a read-alike series while you wait for this next volume, try Powerless by Lauren Roberts. Next up, another thriller. On the 14th, we have Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney. Author Grady Green is having the worst, best day of his life. Grady calls his wife to share some exciting news as she's driving home. He hears Abby slam on the brakes, get out of the car, then nothing. When he eventually finds her car by the cliff edge, the headlights are on, the driver's door is open, her phone is still there, but his wife has disappeared. A year later, Grady is still overcome with grief and desperate to know what happened to Abby. He can't sleep and he can't write, so he travels to a tiny Scottish island to try to get his life back on track. Then he sees the impossible, a woman who looks exactly like his missing wife. Wives think their husbands will change, but they don't. Husbands think their wives won't change, but they do. For a read-alike, try A Killing Cold by Kate Alice Marshall. Next up, a true crime nonfiction book by Kate Winkler Dawson of many podcasts fame, coming out on the 7th, called All the Sinners Bow. Acclaimed journalist, podcaster, and true crime historian Kate Winkler Dawson tells the true story of the scandalous murder investigation that became the inspiration for both Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter and the first true crime book published in America. On a cold winter day in 1832, Sarah Maria Cornell was found dead in a quiet farmyard in a small New England town. When her troubled past and a secret correspondence with charismatic Methodist minister Reverend Ephraim Avery was uncovered, more questions emerged. Was Sarah's death a suicide or something much darker? Determined to uncover the real story, Victorian writer Catherine Reed Arnold Williams threw herself into the investigation as the trial was unfolding and wrote what many claim to be the first American true crime narrative, Fall River. The murder divided the country and inspired Nathaniel Hawthorne's The Scarlet Letter, but the Reverend was not convicted, and questions linger to this day about what really led to Sarah Cornell's death, until now. In The Sinners All Bow, acclaimed true crime historian Kate Winkler Dawson travels back in time to 19th century small-town America, emboldened to finish the work Williams started nearly 2 centuries before. Using modern investigative advancements, including forensic knot analysis and criminal profiling, which was invented 50 years later with Jack the Ripper, Dawson fills in the gaps of Williams' research to find the truth and bring justice to an unsettling mystery that speaks to our past as well as our present, anchored by 3 women who subverted the script they were given. I will be reading this one. For a read-alike in the meantime, while we're all waiting, try The Poisoner's Handbook, Murder and the Birth of Forensic Medicine in Jazz Age New York by Deborah Bloom. And I've read that one, and it's very good. For romance lovers on the 7th, we have The Lodge by Kayla Olson coming out. From the author of The Reunion, a cozy rom-com about a writer who decamps to a Vermont lodge for work, but finds herself distracted by the charming ski instructor next door. Alex Morgan just got her big break as the ghostwriter of a memoir by Sebastian Green, a former member of the boy band True North. And when he offers her a penthouse at a luxurious resort in Vermont, she jumps at the chance to work far away from her noisy, cramped apartment. Her career as an entertainment journalist has been building toward this dream job. After all, she used to cover True North and was one of the last people to interview former frontman Jet Beckett before he disappeared. As she combs through her clients' voice memos, the specter of the missing lead singer remains, and fans are desperate to know the full story. But Alex also has time for some fun at this glamorous resort, where she begins ski lessons with a handsome instructor named Tyler. As Alex and Tyler fall in love on the slopes, Alex's work takes a complicated turn, and the mystery of True North's downfall may be hers to solve. For a read-alike in the meantime, try Any Trope But You by Victoria Lavigne. And of course, it's a month of the year. So what is J. Pats up to? Well, on the 14th, there is a new book out with Andrew Burrell called The Texas Murders. Texas Ranger Yor Yates protects his home state, wearing a 5-pointed silver badge and carrying a Sig Sauer. When a native woman disappears on the summer solstice, clues point to a cold case. Yates, a quick-draw champion, partners with expert archer Ava Cruz of the Tigua Tribal Police. The investigation leads to the edges of Texas's most unforgiving landscape, where the officers take dead aim with every shot in their arsenals. If you would like a really cool Indigenous and Western-themed mystery series and you've never read Tony Hillerman, you should do that and start with The Blessing Way. So now it's time for our bonus segment. Now, if you didn't already know this, the Oshkosh Public Library celebrates its 125th birthday this year, which is pretty exciting. We're doing a lot of special programs to celebrate this, and for our Book Buzz celebration of it, I'm going to talk a little bit about the most popular books through the ages, focusing on a decade for every episode that we do this year. So for January, we'll focus on the decade between 1900 and 1910. So who was the bestseller? What was the most popular books to read back then? These are according to The Bookman, an old New York magazine. The best-selling author of the decade was Winston Churchill, not the politician. Apparently he was of no relation to the legendary Prime Minister of Britain, but there was so much confusion between them and their writings that they wrote to one another and came to the agreement that the Prime Minister would go by his full name, Winston Spencer Churchill, in order for people to tell them apart. But Winston the author, the American author, commanded his own fame and appeared on the top 10 bestsellers of the year in 5 of the 10 years that decade, and in the number 1 spot 4 of those times, for his novels The Crisis, The Crossing, Coniston, and Mr. Crewe's Career. His novels were historical fiction, usually military or political history. His success made him a millionaire in his time, though his books are largely forgotten today. There are some bestsellers from that decade that we still remember, though, like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Hound of the Baskervilles, and The House of Mirth by Edith Wharton, The Jungle by Upton Sinclair, and Rebecca of Sunnybrook Farm by Kate Douglas Wiggin. And there were also a number of books that were not top bestsellers in their time, but are favorites of ours today, like L. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz and Jack London's The Call of the Wild. So those are our historical recommendations for this month. Stay tuned each month for the next decade's most popular books. There have been some really fun ones that I've seen on the lists. And otherwise, I will see you next month for some new and old books to recommend for reading. I hope your reading year gets off to a great start, and I'll see you next time. Bye.